everybody is going to approve of your decision to make a change in your life. And the truth of the matter is you don't need anybody's approval. I think we try to wait for everybody to tell us that we are making the right decision or that it's a good idea. But the fact of the matter is not everybody is going to agree with you or understand you and your decision to make the change in your life. And I think as long as you're comfortable with that, you won't use it as an excuse to stop you from making that change. When I think back to the big changes that I've made in my life, from leaving the police to start my own business, to leaving the UK to move to Italy, there were always people in my life during each of those changes who perhaps didn't quite agree or approve of my decision. And I look back now and I think if I'd listened to those people, if I'd let those people be a reason for me not to make the change, I would never have achieved half of what I've achieved in my life to date. So please, if you are in a situation where you want to make a change in your life and you are holding yourself back because you want everybody to pat you on the back and tell you it's a great idea, stop. It's not going to happen. And all you will do is live a life full of regrets because you are not following what it is that you want to do. Change requires courage. When I think back to who I was when I first moved to Italy back in 2018, I was a completely different girl to who you see sitting in front of the camera today. Every single aspect of my life has changed. Every single aspect of my personality and my character has changed over 4 years. And I think the one constant throughout that time was the fact that I had to have courage, because change requires bucket loads of courage. And, you know, change requires you to step into the unknown. You don't know how things are going to pan out. You don't know what's going to happen, but you trust in the process. You trust that what you desire is going to manifest into form. And, you know, when I think back to all of the changes I've made, like, you know, I've moved home, I've changed jobs. Recently, I moved to cities. I kind of moved out of and back into a relationship. Like, there have been so many changes that I've made in my life, but on the back of every single change, I have become a better person. I have learned something. I have gained something. I have enriched myself in some way on the back of being courageous enough to make those changes in the first place. There is a beautiful quote from Martin Luther King that says, "You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step." And this is so true. Like, don't wait to understand how a situation is going to be before you make the change. Make it anyway, because every single thing I've ever done in life here in Italy has been without me seeing the whole picture. I've had to take the first step, and then gradually, as I took one more step on one more step, the big picture presented itself. But it doesn't present itself from the very beginning. You have to take action first. I think, honestly, we often stay in situations and in places long past their sell-by date because we lack courage to do things differently, because we get stuck in our comfort zones. I think it's very obvious, but in case you don't know, you don't grow in your comfort zone. Your life looks the same way today as it will in 6 months' time, and as it did 6 months ago. Like, nothing changes, and you don't really live your life. And yes, it feels safe. And yes, there are many aspects of a life in a comfort zone that, you know, feel secure, but really, are you fulfilled? Because when you live your life in this way, I think it's a life that lacks fulfillment. And it's interesting because I think, you know, my recent move from Salerno to Palermo, on paper, it wasn't a move that I needed to do. You know, I had a job in Salerno, I knew people there, I knew the area, I had a home. You know, I had my bureaucracy sorted. That alone was probably enough of a reason to stay. So I didn't actually need to move, but I wanted to move. And the reason I wanted to move was because I was very much in my comfort zone in Salerno, and I was very much living a life that lacked fulfillment. And here I am now. I've been in Palermo for 2 months. My life has changed so much in 2 months. I've upgraded many different aspects of my life, and I feel completely settled in this new city, which is light and shade to how Salerno was in terms of how busy it is, how big it is, how lively it is, etc. And I think, you know, I don't miss Salerno. And it's not because Salerno was a bad place, you know, it's always going to have a special place in my heart, but it's just the fact that it was time for me to move on. It was time for me to live somewhere new. It was time for me to be challenged in a different way. And I think, we hold ourselves back from having these opportunities and moments when we decide to always live the life that we're used to. Like, you have to be courageous to make change. You have to be prepared to live a life that's a little bit uncomfortable. Life as an expat every day is uncomfortable because you have many different areas of life that you have to navigate, from like language differences, cultural differences, etc. But that feeling of satisfaction, that feeling of growth that you experience as a result of it is incredible. And it's something that has made me continue to stick it out as an expat, even though I've had, some quite low moments here, because the benefits, the growth, the opportunities that come on the back of being brave and living this life far outweigh any negative aspects. So you do have to step outside of your comfort zone. And I promise you, a lot of the fear that we have around change is up here in our heads. It's not necessarily how things will pan out for you. Like, for example, bureaucracy. The thought of moving to Palermo and having to deal again with all the bureaucracy was enough to make my head explode, when actually it's all been dealt with online, which is amazing, because in Salerno that wasn't the case. So, I just think things don't have to be half as complicated as you think they're going to be. And don't, again, let that be a reason that you decide not to make a change because you think it's going to complicate your life or make it more difficult in some way, because it's not. The end result will make any small challenges you may face in the present moment absolutely worth it. That is the beauty of change. There will never be the perfect time to make the change in your life. If you are waiting for everything to be just right, it's not going to happen. The world is in a precarious place. There are so many different things happening at the moment in different parts of the world that you just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And so if you wait and you wait and you wait for everything to be perfect, I think you're going to be waiting all your life. You have to be brave enough, as I've mentioned before, and strong enough to realise that if you want to make a change, like for example moving to another country or starting your own business, whatever it may be, you have to realise that it's entirely within your control. And you may not be able to control the external influences that might make aspects of your change a little bit more complicated or difficult, but you can certainly control your mindset and your vision and your direction, and you can take control over the actions and steps that you take. One word that I've heard a lot of since I moved here to Palermo is pazienza. Pazienza. And it's usually said by Italians after they've had a conversation about something that they can't control. And it kind of has the significance of patience. And to some degree, I like this because it's true. There is an element of patience that we all need to adopt in life. But on the other hand, I find it quite passive. Like when a situation is difficult and people respond pazienza, I almost want to be like, but what can you do about it? Rather than just being passive and saying pazienza, what can you do to change the situation? If you're not happy about it, what can you do about it? What change can you make? And I think sometimes we regress to this kind of place where we shrug the responsibility off our own shoulders and say that things aren't possible in life because of the government, because of life around us, because of everything else, when actually we do have a personal amount of control over our lives and we can make changes. We don't need everything to be perfect in the world around us, just as we don't need people to approve us, and just as we do need to step out of our comfort zone. These are all things that we can control. And so I want to encourage you not to say pazienza to making the change, but to say pazienza to the outcome of the change. Because once you take that step to make a change, you won't necessarily see the benefits of it immediately. You might have some moments where you think you've made the wrong decision, but ultimately with patience, you will arrive at that point where you wanted to arrive with the change that you made, and you will start to experience the benefits of that change. It's not an overnight experience. It's not something that happens immediately, but it is something that is incredibly, incredibly rewarding. When I think back to who I was when I first arrived here, oh my goodness, back in 2018, I was a totally different woman, totally different. Inside, I was a bit of a mess, to be honest. I was desperately trying to find my happiness. I was close to burnout because I had been working to the bone for pretty much 10 years of my life in the police and with my own business. And I came here with a desire to find myself again and to find my happiness and joy. And oh my goodness, it's been a bit of a journey with lots of changes. And, I've had my fair share of ups and downs. And I look here now at my life and I think, wow, but you did it. And you overcame those down moments and those difficult moments. You overcame them. And look where you are. Look where the changes you have made in your life and to my personality and character have taken me. And, if I can sit here now and give you one piece of advice, it is to make the change you're thinking about making. There is just no tomorrow. There's only now. And so, as I mentioned in my Instagram post today, and I mentioned it because my channel today reached 200,000 views, which blows my mind that nearly 250,000 people have watched my channel. Thank you. But as I said then, there is no better moment than now. So make the change.